Hello again, everyone. Nice to see you, or at least have you join us for another one of our lessons. This is the third of our lessons, and you may remember that one of the things we've been talking about is our family tree, right? Who our parents are, who our grandparents are, or our great grandparents, or our aunts, or our uncles, or our cousins, and thinking about how a family tree helps us to understand the church, right? All those people, not just the people who worship with us when we get to go to church and worship together, but all those people who sort of came before us, like our grandparents or our great grandparents or our great great grandparents. And the church is filled with all kinds of people. We call them saints, people who have shown us how to love and serve Jesus better. So we spent some time filling out our family tree. I was able to fill out my family tree a little bit and hope that you guys were able to fill out your family tree as well. But over the last couple of weeks, we looked at a couple of people already within our family tree in the church, within the family of God. And a couple of sessions ago, we talked about St. Matthew, who was a tax collector, an apostle, and an evangelist, right? An evangelist is a new word for us, but it meant that he told the good news about Jesus. And we were reminded that we're all called to tell the good news about Jesus. And last week, I think we looked at St. Michael and all angels, all those countless angels that God has created, including the guardian angels who are there to protect us and support us and encourage us. And also, last week we talked about St. Michael as one of the angels who helps to defend us. We also talked about St. Gabriel, who sent the message to Mary that she was going to be the mother of Jesus. So angels guard us and protect us, but they also bring God's word to us. And we're reminded that in that way, just like we're supposed to be an evangelist, like St. Matthew, in a sense, we're supposed to be a messenger of God's word, like Michael and Gabriel and the other angels are. So this week, I want to talk about a couple of other people in our family tree, our church family tree, a couple of other ancestors. And I want to start by thinking about the idea of friends. I hope you guys have lots of really good friends at school, and I hope that in the last couple of weeks since school began, you've had a chance to spend more time with some of your friends than you were able to do some months ago when school all closed down, and during summer, of course, as well. And friends are really important, right? We can do things, we can hang around with our friends, they can encourage us, they can support us, they can share some of our interests as well. But sometimes we can also have, maybe this has happened to you, but sometimes we can also have friends who maybe are friends for the wrong reason. Maybe someone pretends to be our friend because we have something that they want, or we're doing something they want to do. Or sometimes people will be our friend because they want to become a friend of someone else through us, someone who happens to be a friend with us. And maybe they don't really want us to be their friend, but they want to use us in a way to get something that they want. Well, I want to talk today about two friends, two people who were friends of each other, but also because of what they did and what they said, helped us to understand better about how we can be better friends of Jesus. And they lived a long time ago. On this side, it's a man named Francis, and on this side, it's a woman named Clare. And they were from a city in Italy, in Europe, called Assisi. So St. Francis of Assisi and St. Clare of Assisi. And they were friends. Francis was a little bit older than Clare. And so Francis, he started his work a little bit sooner than she did. And Francis sort of grew up as all the young men did at that point in time, doing all the kinds of things that young men did at that kind of time, not really worrying too much about life, just basically trying to have as much fun as he could possibly have. And then at that time, very often what happened is as you got older, you had to get in the army, you had to go off to war. And so Francis did all the things that all his friends did as well. But somewhere along the line, he realized that God really was asking him to do something more. He was put in prison, and that gave him some time to think about. Once he was caught in a time of war, he was put in prison. He had some time to think, and he realized that God was asking him to do something more than just waste all his time looking to do all the fun kinds of things that his friends were doing, or certainly wasting his time going off to war, battling with other armies. And Francis had two experiences, two moments when he felt that God was speaking to him and asking him to do something in particular. The first time was when it was in a church. It was an old church. It was a rundown kind of church, a sort of ruined and falling apart kind of church. And Francis went there. It was not far from where he lived and grew up. And Francis went there and he heard God calling to him and say, "Francis, rebuild my church." And so Francis took that as a call from God, an invitation from God to actually physically try to fix up that church, to fix up the walls and fix up the roof and make it a place where people would actually go and gather and worship God. But I think God actually had a larger kind of idea in mind when he called Francis to fix his church. Another time happened when Francis was just in his city and someone was brought to him, and so he found someone and saw someone who was a poor beggar. And this is a picture of Francis as a young man carrying the beggar, bringing the beggar to the hospital. The beggar was very sick. He was very poor. And in that moment, Francis realized that God was calling him to rebuild the church in a different kind of way, not just physically with stones and with bricks or with wood, but to rebuild the church in people's hearts, in people's lives. And so Francis gave up everything he had, gave up his wealth and his home life, and he went off to live as a poor man himself, to actually share the good news, to speak about Jesus. In fact, Francis loved to speak about Jesus so much so that other young men came to join Francis and that they might actually worship God, worship Jesus, and help God's people by caring for the sick, by caring for the wounded. If Francis ever had a little bit of money, he would give that money to the poor. He would share whatever God had blessed him with, he would share that with the poor. And so other people came to join Francis on that work. And in fact, one of the people who heard Francis talk about Jesus was a woman named Clare, a young woman named Clare. And so she decided that she wanted to do the same thing. Francis and those men had joined together and they were working together to teach people and tell people about Jesus and to help and care for the poor. And she wanted to do the same thing as well. So Francis encouraged her. That was Clare. He encouraged her, and she left her family. She left her wealth, even though they really weren't very happy about that. And she served Jesus by caring for the poor. And young women came to her as well. So both Francis and Clare, they gathered this large group of new friends, both friends of each other, but also friends of Jesus as well. I said that Francis loved to tell people about Jesus. He loved to tell people about the good news that we know in Jesus Christ, we have in Jesus Christ, that God loves us in Jesus and God has lived for us and died for us and risen from the dead for us. That's the kind of good news that Francis loved to tell people. Just like I said earlier about Matthew being an evangelist, telling the good news, like we're called to tell that good news to help people know about the love that God has for them in Jesus Christ. Francis loved to do that so much that he would do that on every opportunity he really had. And sometimes if there weren't people around, Francis would even do it to the animals as well. So there's a great little picture of Francis sort of speaking to the birds, telling the birds about the good news of Jesus. And here's another great picture that sort of shows that same thing as well. In fact, some of you were involved and have been involved for a few years, a service of blessing of animals, which takes place around the day when we remember St. Francis every year on October the 4th. And so because Francis loved all of God's creation, he loved all of God's creatures, both his human creatures, but also his animal creatures as well. And so Francis would take every opportunity to tell people the good news of Jesus, tell people about the love of God in Jesus and how we can live every day in hope. And we don't have to live any day in fear because God loves us in Jesus. So I've asked Janice to actually have a few craft activities for you, and we're going to give you copies of those things that you can actually do some of these things at home. So there's Janice. I'm going to turn it over to Janice, and she's going to show you a couple of crafts, a couple of things you guys can think of.
First of all, we're going to do something really, really easy. Father Stockwell was talking about how St. Francis loved all God's creatures, and he showed you a picture of Francis talking to the birds. So I thought it would be nice if we did something to learn about birds and be reminded that they're God's creatures and that we need to love and respect and care about nature too. So what I have here, very simply, is a pipe cleaner. Now, if you don't have any pipe cleaners at home, you could do this with a string. Two, we're going to make some bird feeders that you can hang up outside and attract some birds to your yard. So what you're going to do is you're going to wrap your pipe cleaner around your finger and just twist it and then twist the end in so that you have sort of a loop at the end of it. And then I have some Cheerios, which Father Stockwell is eating. Or you could use Fruit Loops or any thing that's circular, like a cereal that you can put onto a pipe cleaner. And you're just going to,
Something that birds would like to eat.
something that birds would like to eat. And you're just going to
Birds and Father Stockwell.
to put them down on the pipe cleaner, and you're going to fill the whole pipe cleaner up, which is going to take a while. So I'm going to go to my other one that I've already have finished. Put your on. This one's finished, as you can see, whole line of Cheerios. And then take the end of your pipe cleaner and that loop at the bottom, you just slip it through, twist it around like pipe cleaners do to seal it up, and then you can make it into all kinds of shapes. And you can put a little string on it, and you can hang it in a tree or by your bird feeder outside, or I don't know, off the side of your deck or whatever to attract. You might get a few squirrels too, but to attract birds.
Or Father Stockwell.
Or Father Stockwell. And once you've done that, we have a bit of a game or a scavenger hunt that you can do.
About birds.
About birds. So
I'll show you a couple things here. So this, you're going to get a copy of this in an email. It'll show you how to make those bird feeders, just like that. And this one is shaped like a heart, and that one is shaped a little bit like a heart as well. And so, but we also have something else for you. This is sort of like a longer term project. In fact, might want to do this over the next little while. So we said that Francis loved to preach the good news, to tell the good news of Jesus to the animals, including to the birds. And we saw that great picture of the birds all sort of hanging around St. Francis as Francis is sort of reaching out to tell them. So we actually got a picture of something. This is called Backyard Birds of New Brunswick. So these are all birds. I'll do it that way. There we go. That's a little better. The Backyard Birds of New Brunswick. These are birds that you should commonly be able to find here in New Brunswick. And so you'll get a copy of this picture as well. You have a chance to print that off. And then what we're going to encourage you guys to do is spend the next few weeks maybe to try to identify, see whether you actually can find and see any of these birds. And then you can let us know how successful you were. So we'll send that to you. That's sort of a longer term project that you guys can work on together. Okay.
And then you're also going to get a recipe for cake. It's called a poor man's cake. And the reason why we picked this cake is because both Francis and Clare liked to work or worked with people who were poor. And this cake, it's called a poor man's cake because it has certain ingredients that are not in it. It doesn't have any milk, it doesn't have any butter, and it doesn't have any eggs. But it does have sugar and flour and various things. And the recipe is there.
And those ingredients that are left out would have been at one time the more expensive ingredients.
So this is a cake that most people could have made at some point because the ingredients were simpler to get and not as expensive. So we're going to include the recipe, and maybe you and mom and dad, or if you're older, you can make one and you can share it with some people that you that might be in your bubble and enjoy. So I'm just going to cut a piece here so you can see the inside of it. It's got raisins and nuts and lots of spices. So let's hold it up so it doesn't slide off. There you go. So that might be fun to do and enjoy with your family and friends. And remember Francis and Clare and how they made life better for people who weren't as privileged as they were.
Yeah, exactly. I'll mention one other thing. I don't know if we can actually hold that cake up a little bit now. It's been cut a little bit. But I'll show you something if I can find a picture. Just a second. A picture of Francis and Clare together. And it is hiding from you right here. So there we go. We may or may not be able to find it. I think maybe I have it somewhere else here. Oh, here it is, right at the top. Ah, there we go. So you notice the top of Francis's head looks a little bit like the top of my head. No hair. But in that case, they actually would, because he was a monk, because that's what he did when he decided to follow Jesus, they would cut his hair in a particular style so everyone would know he was a monk. And that was called a tonsure. And so actually the cake is actually made in that shape. It's made with a hole in the middle and with the cake on the outside. So that's sort of a nice cake to remind us about St. Francis and the life that he lived. So as I said, Francis did a great job of telling other people about Jesus Christ and about the love of God in Jesus. And Clare, who was his friend, did that great job as well. She started to do that as well. And she gathered a collection of young women who came with her to do the same thing, to care for the poor, to care for those who couldn't really care for themselves. And some have called her a light for the world, right? Because she showed the brightness of God's love, not just by what she said, by what she did as well. In fact, some quotations, there are some quotations of things that Clare said. Love God, serve God, everything is in that. Love God, serve God, everything is in that. And so, remember I said earlier that Francis was told by God to rebuild the church, not just that physical church, but actually the church is the family of God, to help everyone in the church to know better what it means to be a friend of Jesus. To be a friend of Jesus, not because we want Jesus to do something for us, not because we want to get something, but to be a friend of Jesus just because Jesus loves us and we love Jesus. And if we're going to be a friend of Jesus, Francis and Clare both remind us that we have to be willing to care for each other and care especially for those who can't care for themselves. So Francis and Clare, two great saints, two of our ancestors in the faith, two of those people that sort of come before us and have shown us how we can better follow Jesus, how we can better be a friend of Jesus as well. I have one last assignment for you guys as well. It's going to be sent out as well. There's a song based on a prayer by Saint Francis. It's a wonderful prayer about how we might help other people. Make me a channel of your peace, right? So sometimes people get angry with each other, but our job as followers of Jesus and friends of Jesus is to help people to live together in peace, not in conflict, not in war. And so this is a great song, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace, and tells us a number of different ways in which we can actually be friends of Jesus by being friends of each other. And so you're going to get a copy of the words of that song, and you're also going to get a link to a place on YouTube where you can actually listen to a choir, a small children's choir, sing that song. I'm going to encourage you guys to do that as well. So go to that link and you can sing along with them. Make me a channel of your peace. So thank you very much. Thank you for learning about Francis and Clare, two of our great saints. If you get a chance to make the cake, I think it's going to be quite tasty because this one smells pretty tasty. I'm planning to enjoy a piece right now. So I hope to see you very, very soon. And we'll be talking about next week something a little bit different, but we look forward to seeing you next week as well. Thank you very much, and God bless. Bye-bye.